Hello and welcome on board. You're watching Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. First, the headlines. Is presidential election in Senegal back on track? President Macky Sall says he will abide by a court decision and hold consultations to organize the vote as soon as possible. And in those times of political crisis across the continent, how relevant is the African Union? It will be discussed at a summit this weekend. She's making history. Kenyan actress Lupita Nyong'o will lead the Berlin International Film Festival jury. The event has not had a black jury president in its 74-year history. The presidential elections in Senegal will be organized as soon as possible. In the latest twist in the recent political crisis, President Macky Sall said he would fully abide by a court decision that overturned the postponement of the presidential election. The bill that pushed back the February 25th poll had sparked protests across the country, claiming the lives of 3 people. That bill was overturned on Thursday by Senegal's Constitutional Council. Our correspondent Sira Thierry has the latest from Dakar.
The Constitutional Council annulled both Macky Sall's decree and a contentious bill passed by Parliament to postpone the vote to December and urged the authorities to organize the elections as soon as possible. This now puts pressure on the government to reschedule the vote before the end of Macky Sall's term, which is ending on April 2nd. And the president himself has said in a statement today that he will organize the elections as soon as possible. The decision by the Constitutional Council has been welcomed across the political spectrum. Almost all newspapers and news sites in Senegal have published all 5 pages of the decision, and leading opposition members such as Aminata Touré, who is a former prime minister, hailed the decision as a great day for democracy in Senegal. And also members of the PASTEF party, of the former PASTEF party, said that they want the elections to be organized as soon as possible and announced new protests across the weekend. In the wider region, the Commission of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, urged Senegal to stick to the rule of law, and also the EU said to all parties here to follow the Council's decision. Over the last 2 weeks, critics of Macky Sall, who's been in power since 2012, accused him of tampering with the election calendar to avoid a defeat, which has led to widespread protests across the country, killing 3 people.
And on Thursday night, dozens of prisoners were released, a move that some considered a sign of goodwill from the government, which is calling for a national dialogue. More prisoners could be released in the coming days. Sarah Sacco, Simon Martin, Sam Bradpist have the details.
Thursday evening saw emotional scenes outside this prison in central Dakar. Dozens gathered to greet the first political prisoners to be released. After 9 months in detention, activist Pape Abdoulaye Touré is finally tasting freedom.
We are happy, we aren't hiding it, to finally meet with our family and our comrades who have been fighting for our liberation for months.
Some 40 prisoners were released over the course of the evening, but this release is currently provisional, according to their lawyer. Many still face numerous charges, including of compromising public safety. Having only just left prison, this activist said he will protest against the delaying of the presidential election.
It's not just because we have been freed that we will abandon our struggle. We are obliged to fight our people for our children. So this is far from over. The battle has just begun.
Opposition activists were among those to greet the released prisoners. Diop Taïf handed over money to help them get home, but doesn't want to stop there.
There will be legal action. We are demanding compensation because the people deserve it.
Further prisoner releases are underway on Friday.
And as conflicts and constitutional crises multiply across the continent, African heads of state will meet this weekend for the AU summit. The African Union's role will be discussed, as it has been criticized for its lack of response to political instability in the region. Clotilde Hazard is on hand to explain what's at stake.
During the official sessions, little space was given to the crises and conflicts underway on the continent. In any case, they were not on the agenda. The Executive Council focused first and foremost on the institutional reform of the African Union to restore its credibility and improve the enforcement of its decisions. The other priority issue discussed was the permanent seat that the AU has just won at the G20. Naledi Pandor, South Africa's Minister of Foreign Affairs, has already represented her country on several occasions.
Those of us who know G20 had to say, just lower the ambitions a little bit. It's a forum really for deliberations. Of course, important decisions are made, and it's an opportunity in particular to interface with the G7 countries, which are the largest economies in the world. But we have to temper our ambitions, because it's not always possible to discuss everything.
A great opportunity, but the African Union will need to speak with one voice if it is to have any hope of influencing international decisions and defending the interests of a continent that is currently very divided, particularly when it comes to economic interests. The chairman of the Commission, Moussa Faki, deplored the weakening of the institution's pillars, referring to the regional economic communities and to ECOWAS, which lost 3 members last month, further reducing the possibility of a continental free trade area.
Cross-border transhumance is a traditional pastoral practice in West and Central Africa, whereby herders migrate seasonally, crossing borders with their livestock in search of water and pasture. It occurs every year during dry seasons between Cameroon, Chad, and the Central African Republic. It's also now become the source of numerous conflicts between herders and farmers. Report Rolf Steve Domialeux and Melino Bandio.
Bouali is a town 95 kilometers northwest of the Central African Republic's capital, Bangui, and is a cross-border migration zone. Every year, around 5,000 herds of cattle from Chad, Cameroon and Sudan come here during the dry season. This cassava plantation was destroyed by cattle and satellite by a group of herders.
Breeders don't distinguish between fields and transhuman corridors. The oxen have taken over my field. I chased them away with stones and sticks. The herders didn't agree. That's why they destroyed everything.
Not far from this field, a seasonal migration strip of land called a Transhumance corridor is used by another team of herders from Chad. They have traveled 1,500 kilometers in 30 days in search of green grazing land.
Breeders have a lot of problems, because lately, farmers have been setting on their fields close to transhumance corridors and watering points. This is what regularly brings us into conflict.
Last year, conservationists documented 55 incidents of conflict across the country. Campaigners say more must be done to find sustainable solutions to the conflict.
These are corridors here, so we have to make investment. The important thing is to make out these corridors. We need to build water points, we need to set up veterinary health centers to encourage the smugglers to follow the corridors so as not to encroach on the parks or fields. By putting this infrastructure in place, we minimize the conflict.
A multilateral group of soldiers from Central Africa, Cameroon and Chad will be set up next year to accompany herders during the migration period.
Kenyan actress Lupita Nyong'o is making history as being the first black president of the Berlin International Film Festival jury, a first in its 74-year history. Nyong'o will lead the jury in selecting the winning films in the 2 main categories, Golden and Silver Bears. The major international film festivals have often faced criticism for lacking diversity on their juries. Lupita Nyong'o said she was proud of being a symbol of progress.
Not only am I the president, I have learned that I'm the first black president.
Right, that is right.
While I know for a fact I'm more than my race, I also am very proud, humbled, and honored to break that barrier. And in a time right now when there's so much divisiveness, and with progression comes regression and a resorting to tribalism, I'm really proud to be a symbol of progress.
Congratulations to Lupita Nyong'o there. Well, that's the end of our edition. Thank you for watching Hour in Africa. And stay tuned for more news.
It's an annual celebration of ruckus and revelry. Carnival season has kicked off in France, from Guadeloupe overseas to Nice in the south to here up north in Dunkirk, one of the largest and liveliest celebrations. Join us for the party on a special edition of France in Focus.
France in Focus on France 24 and France24.com.
The history of our world is ever-changing. The flow of information is constantly increasing. We cover all subjects. We verify. We commit. On the ground, in all circumstances, to anticipate the future by understanding the present. We are with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. France 24, an alternative look at the news.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.